Okay, I understand we have a quorum. Everyone is here, actually. Thank you for everyone for showing up. So I'll call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are located in the traditional territory of the Lukwato people. And could I get a motion to adopt the public agenda for the February 19th, 2025 regular meeting?
Move adoption.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. I don't think we have any petitions or delegations. Could I get a motion to the minutes of the inaugural meeting for the Strathcona Gardens Commission held January 2025 be adopted?
Move adoption.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. Is there any public considerations? I don't see any. Chair report. I don't have a report at this point. Staff reports. So I understand we have the first item is the Camp River Storm Hockey Club license agreement. So motion that the report from the CEO be received.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? And that the second motion, that a draft agreement to extend the current license for the Camp River Storm be returned for further consideration by the Commission.
Move recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Granlund. Any discussion on that? Yes, Commissioner Granlund?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if it's the appropriate time or not, but if we do add time to the existing agreement, what changes, et cetera, should we be working on for the future agreement, i.e., Tom, i.e. 1 year down the road, i.e. The issues we've had during storm games this year with security and possibly recovering some more ice costs.
If I may, Madam Chair.
It gives us a year to work on what we need to work on for a new agreement.
Yeah, I think what would be appropriate if we had a motion at some point, the Storm have the right of extending this for one last year, but I think in this next year we should start bringing forward kind of, at least for a philosophical discussion to the Commission about the terms of the agreement. They're quite generous, I would say, to the Storm, and they've been in place for quite some time. This is a new board, and I'm not sure that philosophy aligns with this agreement. And so what we can do, if there's a motion to bring forward details of this agreement, and maybe we have some suggestions or we'll get some direction from the Commission about where we want to go. Because there's things in there, let's say, for advertising and for the beer gardens and revenue and security and all those kind of things in there that are certainly up for discussion, whether the Commission wants to continue with those or pivot, happy to do that. But I think a motion to bring back a report kind of outlining the low-hanging fruit on that might be worth it.
Any further discussion? Would someone want to put a motion with respect to that, or?
Currently on B.
Oh, it's on B. At the draft agreement, or is it? We're on B. Oh, sorry. We're discussing the current motion B, and then we'll have to entertain another motion. So any further discussion on B? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Now, is there a subsequent?
No, I think I'm fine at this time. We'll move forward with extending the agreement if it passes, and then we'll work on the next process.
Yes, Commissioner Rice?
I'm happy to move the motion that Mr. Leach was talking about, if there's support.
Yeah, I think it might be worth it because this isn't going to be, I think, a one-item issue that maybe staff bring a report on options for the next storm contract would be.
I'll second that.
Is that clear enough to Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was John Rice's motion.
Yes.
Yeah. And just to make a further comment, Madam Chair, I don't know anything about the licensing agreement, so I think the report would be quite helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It looks like it's carried. I don't see any opposition. Thank you. Now we have another item, number 2, that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received on the Strathcona Gardens program offerings.
Move receipt.
And Madam Chair, I believe Robin and his team will speak to this.
Thank you.
Thank you through the CAO to the chair and the commissioners. This is part 1. There's another report that's coming because in 2024 we were asked what other facilities are doing that residents of Campbell River and Area D can benefit from. It's a more in-depth report. We thought we would start with this, and this really references the governing bodies that we're associated with and that we share information with. And then I'll just pass this over to Sarah.
Thank you. So there are a number of associations that we work with in recreation. Some are regulatory bodies that you hear about a lot, like the Life Saving Society and Canadian Red Cross. And there are additional affiliations that shape the work that we do, less regulatory and more as far as setting industry standard and setting guiding principles that we follow. The first of those that we're going to talk about today is the BC Parks and Recreation Association, or BCRPA. So we're affiliate members with BCRPA, and BCRPA is our provincial advocate for recreation. So they work with the province to secure funding for recreation programs and services. An example of that historically had been grant funding for family day activities. This year, the province did not release funding for family day activities. BCRPA informed us of that. And with that timely information, we are able to work for the second year in a row to secure private funding to host a free swim and skate for the community. So this past Monday, it was sponsored by Mary and Jens Rolinski with the Campbell River McDonald's, and we were able to host a very well attended free event for the whole community for the afternoon on Family Day.
And that covered the ice as well as the pool.
And so it's important to know kind of how interactions with the BCRPA impact our business. For example, we will be putting forward nominations for 2 different program awards, a Program Excellence Award for our Carey High Swim and Life Saving program, where we've taken grade 10 to 12 students at Carey High and taken them through their Standard First Aid, Bronze Medallion, and Bronze Cross. And putting that program forward for a Program Excellence Award can help us potentially secure grant funding in the future for these innovative programs that are supporting the community. And then we'll also be putting forward a nomination for Deborah Wilson, who's retiring this year, for a Lifetime Achievement Award in recognition for all that she's contributed both to our own unique programs and services at Strathcona Gardens, but also recognizing the impact that she's had on the fitness industry in the province as a whole. So the BCRPA is really our affiliate for fitness licensing programs and services, and in general, the recreation programs. So next I'll talk about our Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. So the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association works for advocacy for recreation at a federal level, so securing long-term funding for the provinces for development of new recreation facilities, or ensuring that recreation is included in funding for healthcare spending for the provinces. And some examples of updates through the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association is they're setting out tactical guides, and they did a highlight of a program of a community program in Squamish, where they are empowering community residents to use municipal-owned spaces to develop programs and events for fellow citizens in the community. And so the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association will see a program like this, ask them how they achieve this program, and then put together a guide so that that type of program can be replicated in other communities. And while it's not necessarily directly relevant to the work that we at Strathcona Gardens do, we think it is relevant particularly to our partner municipalities within the regional district. And then Canadian Parks and Recreation Association sets the framework for recreation. So they shape what is recreation in Canada, what does it look like, and what are our priorities. And we have provided feedback to help shape that framework. And it's important that we do so because that helps shape where federal funding can come from in the long term. So the staff and management send feedback on that framework, and then we've requested to be part of focus groups when they do more focused work on setting the new framework standards. And then the final association that we're going to highlight today is the Recreation Facilities Association of BC. So RFABC shapes more around the facility operations side of our business. So we have all of our programming side is supported through BCRPA, and then the facility management side is through RFABC, as well as ICE programming is supported through RFABC. They also have a series of awards coming up. We are not putting forward any nominations for these awards. We do expect to be sending a delegation of staff to their annual conference and trade show for networking, sharing best practices, and learning opportunities. There are few learning opportunities in recreation facility management, and this is one of the only opportunities throughout the year. And they've highlighted, for example, sharing information about the city of Kitimat and that they're moving forward to repair their ice rink that was damaged by fire, and that the community of Nelson is moving forward with a second engagement on their recreation complex. So sharing information about what's happening with the facility management elsewhere in the province lets us know what are the industry trends in construction and management, and helps us stay aware of that for potential conflicts or competition, or sharing information about our own projects.
And just one quick note, the BCRPA and RFABC, they work with all the rec facilities and associations in BC, and then they feed into the Canadian Parks and Rec Association. That's typically the flow. We do get the odd request direct from Canadian Parks and Rec Association, but for the most part, those other associations are structured to advocate for us at a federal level.
So, and then finally, we just thought we'd share what are other facilities contacting us about? What are people taking note that we are doing here in the region that other municipalities are looking to replicate? So the first step is our asset management plan. So communities that are visiting, for example, visiting tournament teams, are taking notice of the improvements that are being done in Arena 2, and then speaking to their arena managers about that. And then those arena managers are contacting us to, ask about,
flooring, automatic doors, our approach to grants. A lot of these rec associations, they do a grant for a brand new pool or a brand new arena, but there are lots of grants available for dehumidifiers, HVAC units, portions of flooring that are associated with programming. There's lots out there. You just have to look for it. And that's something that we've shared within RFABC, and it is catching on. There's just more competition, but it has increased the number of grants that the province is putting out, because they see a need to do smaller steps versus let's just replace the whole facility.
And then our assistant lifeguard program that we rolled out in 2023 is quickly becoming replicated across the island in various forums, and lots of contact from other municipalities about how we rolled that out and the effectiveness and our learnings through that that process.
So just to add a little context to that program, so what we found is we had a lot of young kids that have gone through the courses and they started to work at Strathcona Gardens. It can be nerve-wracking on a Friday night or a Saturday night. So we've done this assistant program so they get to shadow a guard and then until they feel comfortable, and then they become a full-fledged lifeguard, and it's reduced the amount of staff that exit because it's just not for them. And it's made them feel comfortable in a working environment and part of a team. So it's been pretty successful throughout the BCRPA.
Yeah, so we have had staff that choose to stay as assistant lifeguards, but we also have the first of our assistant lifeguards is now shift supervisor, leading other lifeguards on the deck. So highly successful model at retaining and training staff.
And speaking along with that on the ice side, one of the most noteworthy programs that we've offered for nearly 30 years now, and we're really proud of, is the Little Rascals hockey program. And it's something that's been adopted by other municipalities down island from us in Comox and Nanaimo. They just call it different names. I think one name for Courtney, they call it Tiny Tots. It's a program where kids that are 3 to 5 get an introduction to hockey. And it works really well on the leisure ice that we have at our facility because it's a smaller ice surface. And because normally kids don't start minor hockey until they're 5. So these kids get a head start at that. And to them, a lot of the kids too, they'll register for the program early in September and they'll continue all the way through till March. And we host a wind-up party for them. So for them, it's like a hockey season. And, they play games amongst each other. And one thing that's pretty neat about that program is I think right now we have 5 of our staff in the skate shop that are alumni from the Little Rascals program, and one being Joel, our program coordinator. He was part of the first program of Little Rascals like 30 years ago.
And just to highlight that kind of all of our program areas are equally successful, we've also received interest from the Qualicum Band to have our staff at the cost of the Qualicum Band come down and lead similar programs to our chronic disease management and Take Heart, Breathe Well program, because these programs are very innovative and unique to what we're able to offer to citizens of Campbell River. They've heard about that and they would like to replicate that program. So start off by directly training members of the band, but then also training leaders to lead that program in the future. So we recognize that our future report of all of the programs and services that we could be offering is a very robust and quite fulsome report. This is just a smaller sample, a few highlights of what it is that we're doing and what guides us in the work that we do.
Yeah, and that report has some links with how we support areas outside of Campbell River and Area D as well. There's some connections to Quadra Island, Cortez, Gold River. And that will be in that further report. And thank you. And questions?
Yeah, do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner Grenlund.
Thank you, Chair. I have just a comment that ever since Little Rascals has started, minor hockey is ecstatic because minor hockey gets kids that can already skate for the most part because they've learned to skate in the Little Rascals program, and minor hockey loves Little Rascals.
Anything further? Yes, Commissioner Dahl.
Well, thanks for the report, and I like seeing that Jens and Mary Valinsky had supported the Family Day activities, but I wonder what is done to publicly thank them. I think that other businesses would be more apt to help pitch in with things like this, not just with Strathcona Gardens, but community-wide. If they saw that there was some recognition, I know Jens and Mary, and they do a ton of stuff in the community, and I don't think anyone in the community does a very good job of really recognizing all of the contributions that they make. So maybe the Strathcona Gardens could be the first one to really do the job well.
Thank you. Yeah, we've actually talked about that, and we do have some recognition in our KPI report that's coming out in the next month or two as well. And then, Craig, do you have anything?
Yeah, they're recognized through all of our social media that we do leading up to the events. We have a special sign put up on the facility for people to see that are passing by. And also, we recently put a board sign on Arena 2 that recognizes Marion Jens and the McDonald's organization.
And we're happy to do more. So this is something that we've just started to look at, and we're happy to do more, and we'll work with our marketing specialists and the communication groups here to see how we can promote that better and get other businesses on board as well.
Yes, Commissioner Kerr.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. And you know, it's great for somebody like myself that doesn't spend a lot of time up there. So, you know, I don't have kids in the program or anything like that. So, I mean, it really does give me an insight into what's happening. And further to Director Dahl's comments, you know, there's a lot of people in the community that don't. And even though there's signage up there for the community groups or the business groups that help, it doesn't necessarily filter out into the community. The amount of work that they do and the support they give our kids. So I think, you know, blow your own horn a little bit more to the general public rather than to just the users. Thanks.
You know, one thing I can add is that, you know, one thing that will change when the first phase of Recreate is done is we'll have an electronic board sign, which will help facilitate some of this recognition as well and advertising.
So I have a couple more if there's nobody else. Do you have any questions, Commissioner Rice? No? No. Okay, so, yeah, I was just still wondering whether or not we still had the static sign that was visible with all the construction. I couldn't recall, but I'm assuming that takes a bit of work it's gone. Okay, that's what I thought. Don't be afraid to reach out to the city to amplify your message for anything that's good for the city with city businesses involved. That's definitely probably open to the regional district. And the gardens. So what I found really interesting was, first of all, well, Deborah Wilson, I've been in awe of the work that she's done for many, many years, and I had the opportunity to have a number of clients of mine over the years benefit from her services, so highly deserving person. And then I was really interested in the details that you had with respect to the two aspects. It was the potential for grants for active transportation, and there was just in the report mentioning that there was a deadline coming up and that it really wasn't within your scope, but I wasn't sure if you were aware of the number of intersections that the city's master transportation plan had to drive active transportation to the gardens. So certainly reach out to Melissa Heidema ASAP to make sure if there's any grant opportunities, because I believe there's a multi-use pathway that's supposed to access the gardens, and then there's potential for all the way to 19A walking route. So people would be able to transverse down Pinecrest all the way to the ocean, which then gives you the advantage of going back down Pinecrest to the Beaver Lodge land. So it could open up some more pathways for active transportation. You guys would be the hub.
Yeah, we've shared that with the programming team from the city, but we'll definitely reach out to Melissa today with that information.
Excellent. And I think there was the last part, when we had the presentation on the 4 different aspects, and it came to my mind that I've dealt with a number of businesses in time, and you actually have an incredible ability to financialize and make some money. If you've got a program that you can license out and then support, you guys could actually, I know it's in your blood to share alike, but it's also valuable, especially your rehab program, if you're able to make it into policy books and actually sell a licensed program, not for tons of money, but it's replicable, and you can actually improve your revenue to the gardens as well as your reputation. If you've got your Little Rascals program and all those other programs, I'd encourage you to at least consider revenue opportunities to share the good work and innovation that you're doing at the gardens. So anything that arises from that from the commissioners? Okay, so we have, oh, do you want to comment, Mr. Kenford? No, okay. So we've got oh yes, Commissioner Kerr?
Motion to receive?
I think we have the motion to receive on the floor at this point.
Is it?
Yes, so we'll take the vote, and if you want to make a motion to receive the presentation right afterwards, that's great. So all in favor of the report being received? Any opposed? Okay. A further motion to receive the presentation?
So moved.
Seconder? Thank you. I guess you can find somebody. Did you get who was it? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Oh, wow, we've got now number 3, that the report from the CAO be received with respect to the Recreate Aquatic Wellness Project construction update.
Move receipt.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. Is there a presentation?
I think Wolf will speak to this.
Through the CAO and the chair to the commission, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to provide an update on the Recreate Aquatic and Wellness Project. So similar to my previous presentations, I'm going to project a few photos of images of progress of work. I'm going to speak about what's coming up for the rest of the winter time and beginning of spring, an update on the financials and some of the adjustments that we have to do to some of the contracts. I'm going to speak about, or China right next to me is going to speak about First Nations art, a little bit of a risk and mitigations measures that we have in place for the project. So work continues on forming and placing concrete for basement walls, footings, and columns. You can see it on the left side. Adjacent to that big, massive concrete wall is dogwood. Those walls are going to be surrounding the perimeter of the facility. To the right, you can see the forms being removed and the concrete being finished. So, but soon, all those walls are going to be built, and it will be pretty difficult to see from outside the fence unless you're riding public transportation. You can see what's happening within those walls, which is the construction of the pools coming up this spring. The image that you see is it's the columns we're forming all the areas, the electrical, mechanical, water entry, and heat recovery for the project located on the basement corridor. Behind those columns that you see is the change rooms. Those columns in the back that you see being formed are going to be poured within the next couple of weeks. So as usual, I'm just doing a short video so you can see what's happening behind those walls if you haven't had the chance to stop by or drive by the site. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, those walls are 5 meters high. A lot of the work is being done on the ground. You can see all the reinforcing steel being tied together by the crews, and they're using a lot of equipment to erect the forms and also erect that rebar. Also notice we received a snow within the last couple of weeks. We received a 3-day delay by the contractor, but we anticipate that they're going to bring the schedule back to the expected completion date. The delay is due to the fact that we didn't reach the temperature required at the bottom of the foundations where it joins with the exterior walls. So we have to wait until the temperature actually increase in order to be able to pour concrete. So coming ahead, if you look at the structural plan to the right, the colorful one, just to make it a little bit easier, if you look at the top section, that's the north, so orange, yellow to the south, in yellow is south, green to the east, the change rooms turquoise to the east, west, pink and orange. So what's coming up is we gotta finish those exterior walls that go, if you see purple, pink and orange, the exterior wall will be completed in the next couple of weeks. The south part, orange, yellow, is completed, and now we have to wrap up the east side, which is everything that you see in yellow and green. The north side, which is all gray, will remain open. That is for access for all the structural steel that is being manufactured right now, and it will be erected in July 2025. So that will remain open. So a lot of the work coming up, everything is going to be shifting into the lap pool. All the footings and all the walls are going to be formed, and they're moving from the lap pool into the leisure, and after that, we'll continue into the wellness and the hot pool. China has been leading the First Nations art process with the Waiwaikai and Waiwaikam, and she will be happy to speak about this.
Thank you, and good morning to the Commission and the Chair. So just a little bit of a high-level update about where we're at. So incorporating First Nations art has always been considered part of the project, and a budget of $150,000 was allocated early on and was committed to the nations during some of the early consultation that we had. So we have two opportunities for First Nations art. One is a mural or a low-profile relief carving in the back wall of the Central Heart, and the other is an outdoor sculpture in the main plaza area. We have successfully engaged both nations and presented them with our request to understand whether or not they're interested in moving forward with helping us select artists and moving forward in a collaborative way with both nations. During our early consultation, we heard that they requested that we ensure that the art in the facility represented the Lagwato heritage and culture. So that's why we focused on just the Waiwaikai and Waiwaikam. We're hoping to empower them to sort of lead the artist engagement and management process with a smaller delegate finally selecting the art pieces. We're hoping to have the artists selected by April in order to give them an orientation to the facility so that they can ensure that it integrates with the architecture and function of the design. But the main milestone that we need to hit is September of 2025 is when we're going to need to understand if there are any architectural items or anchors that we need to put in to accommodate that art, with installation happening in mid to late 2026. So again, early stages, and we're hoping to have a little bit more information from the Waiwaikai and Waiwaikam as to how we're going to proceed and making a small group to make those decisions. So we'll come back to you once we've gotten a little bit further into the project. Thank you.
Budget update. So we continue receiving progress claims from the builder, invoices from the consultants, the sub-consultant team as well. So we go through a very detailed review. That this is like a three-step process where the review starts with the architect, and then it goes to us, to the project manager, and it ends here in our office, just to ensure that everything that is beyond align with what's being built. So right now, we have four progress claims being issued by general contractor that are total $3.1 million. We have a contract $60.7 million with Heather Bray Builders. We also have a contract with ACMA and the sub-consultant team. The total costs that have been approved and invoices is $420,000. We have a contract $1.3 million with them. And we have other owners consultants like social, geotechnical, surveyors, testing agencies, anything related to permitting insurance come out of that same budget, $7.7 million, and we have certified $491,000. We have had some project adjustments due to changes in regulations. The first one is related to a change in regulation by WorldSafe BC. They made it mandatory that every construction site that has more than 25 workers needs to have flush toilets and hand wash devices in place. So that was effective October 1st. We were able to secure a unit. Imagine how many projects in the province are trying to get this. So we were lucky to have that, and it's right now installed and it's working and ready to be available once we have more than 25 workers on site, which is coming up pretty soon. We have civil adjustments. Not all of these adjustments are additional cost to the project. We also have credits. We have existing conditions that we didn't anticipate where we're getting credits back, but we have some additional costs related to the temporary chemical room, some modifications from the original design that were required to meet requirements from Vancouver Island Health. Some of these adjustments were anticipated during the design stage. We knew that at some point we were going to actually get these regulations in place, and so we included in the contingencies, and these contingencies are being managed very carefully to make sure that we stay within the approved budget. So right now, the project is on budget and scheduled on track. And with that, I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Okay, commissioners, any questions arising from the report? Yes, Commissioner Grenland.
Thank you, Wolfang, for the report, and thanks to the chair. Quick question on what's happening with America.
Yeah, so we've been very proactive working with the general contractor. This is all over the news, and I experienced that 3 years ago. So we want to make sure that, we have a plan. And I'm just going to speak about what we have done. Well, the first thing is looking at the contracts, what type of contracts the general contractor has with the trades. And, it's under the duties and taxes. So basically, the trade is only responsible for those duties and taxes when they bid for the project. So anything extra will be actually billed to the general contractor. The general contractor will pass it to us. We have a contract as well with the general contractor, CCDC 5B, what stipulates exactly the same. So what we need to do is we need to work carefully how to minimize the impact to the project. And the first thing that we have done is we have asked the general contractor to put a list of materials and equipment that is coming from the States. This is very preliminary right now because if the tariffs are implemented to Canada, that doesn't affect the project. It will only affect the project when Canada retaliates and put tariffs on the States, and if those tariffs are related to some of the materials that are coming for this project. So that list is being developed at this point. We need to understand what kind of suppliers we have here in Canada. If there are alternatives, we need to look at what's the status of the submissions. This is not an easy process. We hire a trade. That trade needs to submit shop drawings. Those shop drawings are approved. They need to buy the equipment. Once they buy the equipment, they ship the equipment from the States. Once they cross the border, that's when they pay the tax. So it is a big process right now that we have going on, and we're trying to understand what kind of materials can we purchase before anything can be implemented, and if we can bring it and store these materials here in Canada. If anything gets implemented, we're looking at options of looking at different suppliers within Canada to see if alternative products can be approved for this project and if they can be installed as well. So we're working on this, and I'm happy to provide an update as soon as I have more information, but we know it's critical. We're ahead of the game, and we're hoping that, the project budget and as well the schedule doesn't get impacted by the tariffs. But that's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you, Wolfgang.
If I may, Madam Chair, what we'll certainly be doing is if we do a summary and find that we have goods coming from the States and there's going to be a tariff and that's going to implement costs, we will certainly be putting those together and going to the province and our MP and saying, this is how you're punishing us. So once we have those and what we anticipate and what we hear coming out, we'll immediately, if there's going to be a negative impact, we're going to let our MLA or MP in the province know because they will be hurting us.
Okay, Commissioner Kerr?
Thank you, Chair. And I think that's a good point to be made, is that this is a tariff that is definitely going to raise our costs. On the First Nations art, it's good to see there's a budget for the public art that's going in the facility of 150. Now, is the public art component of the project exclusive First Nations art, or would there be other public art in the facility?
We have only contemplated the First Nations art to date.
So was that a budget item that got directed solely to First Nations? Is that the way it worked, or was it intended to be the complete public art budget from the very beginning?
All of the art within the facility was envisioned to be public art, and so that budget was allocated for, was envisioned to be First Nations art, and so that budget was always intended to be First Nations art and was communicated to the First Nations during the engagement sessions before we began constructing and tendering the project.
I have a hard time with that. There's a lot of other artists in the world and locally beside the First Nations, and I think that excluding, other public art in the facility, to me, just does not sit right. It's, if they wanted to contribute their own art at their own cost, that'd be one thing, but to just have a budget that's an exclusive First Nations budget, like I say, that does not sit right.
Do you want to have any other follow-up on that, Commissioner Kerr, or just leave it as is?
Well, I just want to, I mean, obviously, if it's been promised to the First Nations and the papers have been signed, basically, there's not a heck of a lot that we can do about it.
I don't think there has been paper signed, but I think through engagement, and then when we presented the budget and the items in there, there was an allocation for First Nation art. It doesn't exclude any other art in the facility, but there's no budget for it. So certainly if there's a desire to have additional art in the facility, we can either address it now, we can wait till we're later in the process, but there's just no budgeted resources for them. But that doesn't mean it's exclusive to First Nations art. It was part of the engagement that there was going to be art in the facility that helped represent the facility as a facility within their territory.
So it's not exclusive.
No, just the money has been earmarked for First Nations. There's no money earmarked for additional art. That doesn't mean it prohibits the additional art. We just don't have any, at this point, financial resources for it.
Which pretty much eliminates it. It's something that is happening in public art, right across the province. That even in the procurement process, that First Nations art, any other artist is just not even getting a shot at the work, and I think it's a slippery slope when it comes to art. I mean, it's all very nice to have a recognition, but when you have total budgets, and some of these are, they're not small budgets, that are exclusive First Nations, like I say, it doesn't sit right with me.
Okay, Commissioner Kerr. Dahl, sorry.
Well, it's all already kind of been said, but I heard the words that the Wewakai and Wewakam during consultation requested that all of the art be specific to the Lakewood, which means that nobody else can be considered, and it is exclusive because no one else is going to be considered. Only Wewakai and Wewakam, or at least other Lakota-speaking peoples, which leaves out any non-First Nations or Hamelco.
Yes.
So that they did not, during our engagement, there was not a lot of discussion about non-First Nations art. So most of the comments and conversations that we had were related solely to First Nations art. So that's where the comment about it representing the Ligwido family group came to play. Similar to what the CAO said, I do not believe that it precludes opportunities for non-First Nations artists should we identify locations and budget to support that in the future.
And I think, if I can, just one more comment, is that I think the budget for the art was to represent the facility or the land that they're on represents their territory. So it wasn't so much art. I mean, it's represented through art, but it was a way to represent the facility on the Liquito lands. Don't quote me on that, but it wasn't like, hey, we need art for this place, let's get some only First Nations art. It was a way to recognize and represent the facility on their lands through art. It's not, so that budget was to kind of allocate some funds to represent the facility in their territory, I would say. And it's represented through art. So we don't have any, I would say, art budget in there. It's more a way to allocate some funds to have the facility represented on that territory.
Yes, Mr. Kendrup?
And I believe through the consultation process, it was as innocent as expanding on some existing art that's in the facility. There's an existing carving that's in the facility, and I think that's where the initial comments came from, just to expand on what was initially done.
Okay, we're still on item 3A, which is receipt. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the report being received? Any opposed? Okay, and I'm looking for a motion on item B, that the supplementary report of the CEO be received.
Move receipt.
Thank you. Any discussion on the disclosure of the payments? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. So we don't have any bylaws that we're proposing. Now we're looking at a motion to receive the Crystal Pool replacement correspondence from the Daily Capital Daily.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Oh, is there something the CEO wants to say?
Just comment on it. I mean, maybe this is scab I keep picking off, but the Crystal Pool was doing, I would say, a process in parallel to ours, looking at, upgrading their facilities. There was some grant programs federally available. At the time, it looks like the pool, their pre-COVID cost estimate was around $60 million. And, they went through a process of looking for funds, instead of building the pool, got to a point where, there's really no grant money available for recreation of this kind of size. And it went to a referendum passed, but the cost of the pool went from, low 60s to $210 million or so.
And as I read it, they're shutting down the facility for a number of years to build this, right? They're losing the facility.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, Commissioner Kerr has a question.
Not a question, just reading the article, and one of the last lines, it says, this is the mayor saying, I will say that for something like this in the capital city, I'd be very optimistic that the provincial government would make a contribution, she said. We have not had those discussions yet, but let me be clear, we certainly will be. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, and we could certainly follow up with those same kind of conversations.
Yeah, and happy to, and we have. I would say that mayor is wishful thinking. I mean, we have attacked and been aggressive, and recreation funds are extremely difficult to get. Every recreation program is tens, if not hundreds of millions, right? So I'm not certain when I looked at the article whether they have earmarked that money that they think they're getting, or they just think that would be bonus money, but I wouldn't count on that until they actually have it. But again, if there's anything out there, we're happy to attack it. But there's nothing out there that's going to kind of provide that kind of money.
Okay, going to call on the vote on receipt. All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. I don't think we have any other items. No commissioner reports, business addendums, closed sessions. So a motion for termination?
Second.
All in favor? No opposed? Okay, we're done.